Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. Usually I don't do these things scripted, so obviously this is a non-script live stream, just as usual and such, but I figured that is the way to start things off because to me, I feel like it most likely is better to come natural and to come to you guys to actually talk about something like this. Now, the hype has been going on for such a while, and I got to start from the beginning because otherwise it's not really going to make much sense if I just go into the middle, then start from the beginning, and then work my way to the end. But for this to actually work, I'm actually going to do something for a special occasion. Some of you may have already seen this, some of you have not, but let me go ahead and do this because, again, this is a special occasion. As you can obviously tell, I'm wearing a Metallica shirt. Metallica, favorite band in the whole wide world, but this is something that recalls for a special occasion for this stream. Give me about a few seconds and I'll show you why. Now, I figured it would be appropriate to be dressed for this particular day. I could have done this stream about 3 or 4 days ago, but I figured with all the hype going on, why not savor the hype a little bit and then talk about what has been going on. And for this to work, you gotta actually, wave the flag or the banner as such. So, as you guys already know, the topic obviously of it is pretty much based upon Eddie Munson from Stranger Things from season 4. Now, let's go to the very beginning of this real quick because, again, I need to actually stay honest with you guys, and this kind of also parallels into the amount of controversy that has been going on with the whole gatekeeping with Metallica. My favorite band in the whole wide world. I'm one of their biggest fans, but I'm one of their biggest fans that likes to be at a respectful distance, and unlike certain people out there that can sometimes either come off as clingy, creepy, or whatnot, I like to be one of those respectful fans, to respect the rules and to respect the space of people and to respect those who have different tastes. And that's one of the big things I do want to cover as well too. But let's cover upon the first two things before we move on to that. So this is kind of the filler in between this. Now, ever since the whole hype of Eddie Munson with Master of Puppets on Stranger Things season 4, this has attracted a lot more of new people to discover Metallica's Master of Puppets song. While in my perspective and a lot of other people's perspective, I'm sorry, talking fast, it is a great and wonderful thing because now new people are being introduced to this kind of music that have not heard this before. And I think it's a wonderful thing that more people are now being introduced to something that they haven't heard before. And it doesn't really matter where you hear it or when you hear it. It's not an exclusion. It's not an exclusive club or anything like that. And that's one of the things that I think we have to break down a little bit because this also kind of provides, a common ground for generations, not just for myself as much as I hate the word millennial, but with Gen Z, you have boomers, you have Generation X, all of these together right there. This is a common ground right here. And I feel like this also breaks one of the biggest barriers of our generations that are in between. And I think it's a good thing. I just don't believe that we should be gatekeeping a lot of it together because you know what? No one should be excluded from something that they enjoy. And it does not matter when or how you discover that. What matters is that if you enjoy it, then it's for you. Welcome aboard. Okay. No one should be held as an outcast for liking something that they like. Now, this is also a parallel to someone like me. Why? Because if you remember, I typed to those who've actually seen my posts on Facebook or probably read the description that is right down below. I've stated before that I was not really a fan of Stranger Things until I had discovered Eddie Munson. So bear in mind, just a few weeks, maybe even a week or maybe 2 weeks back before then, there was a time before that there were screenshots of Eddie Munson. That's how I first discovered this, by the way, because I didn't exactly know exactly where they were taking the character. Nice to see you, by the way, Orlando Rainbow. It's good to see you right there, and I do agree. Gatekeeping is, in fact, a stupid thing to do. I had discovered Eddie Munson. At first, I thought he was based off of Van Halen, and I thought, because there were other characters that I was familiar with because I had seen certain, clips from certain seasons of Stranger Things. We actually had, certain antagonists like Billy Hargrove, for example, in season 3. And he was also in season 2, I believe, as well, too. I thought at first Eddie was going to be an antagonist in a way. But jumping to conclusion, like I said, I hadn't seen any of the particular not screenshots, but the particular footage as well to see how his character would be. But then as I discovered this kind of footage, I actually had help from a friend who got me into season 4. As I saw Eddie's character, I immediately started to sink in a very good way to how his character was. Now, let me kind of back up a little bit, not back forward, but let me kind of back up a bit. The comparison of what I'm saying is that when people try to gatekeep music, like Metallica, to those who are newly, into the newly discovered areas of Metallica as well to this day, people who try to exclude that from people or try to don this kind of, you don't really belong here, or it's sad and pathetic. No, that's not something else, because the contrast is I wasn't a fan of Stranger Things. Bear in mind, I'm one of the biggest fans of Metallica in the respectful sense, but I had newly discovered, or actually I ended up having this growth for liking Stranger Things since the character of Eddie Munson was introduced to me. So we really can't be playing the gatekeeping argument, because this can also be applied both ways from a show and also in the terms of music. Nothing should be excluded from these two particular groups. So that being said, that's something that I wanted to state, because I cannot stress this enough, because no one should be kept out of something that they either discovered recently or discovered back then. Metallica even made this very clear on one of their posts, that it does not matter when you were a fan, whether if it was 40 years, 4 years, or just 4 seconds, or maybe even 4 days. It doesn't even matter the timing. You start somewhere as a person, and if you build upon that as a fan, you do. If you don't really like it, okay, well then it's not really for everybody. But that does not mean that you are excluded from something. You don't have to pass a trial. You don't have to go through certain type of, events or whatnot. You don't have to pass any certain qualifications to be a fan. There's nothing on there that restricts or limits you to enjoy such music or to be a fan. It doesn't matter if you even just like one song. If you like it, you like it. No one should judge you for that. That being said, so that is my filler for this particular area. Now I'm going to fast forward a little bit, but before I do, I want to make sure that I got some things covered here, because my phone is about to die, but I want to be able to cover my ground as soon as possible and pretty much get everything without missing a single area and without leaving any stone unturned, because this is one I do enjoy. And it doesn't matter if anybody else is here. But before I do that, it makes you feel better. I've never seen Stranger Things, but I do love the soundtrack. And there you go. Even if you haven't seen the show, at least in some regards, if you discover something you haven't really, discovered before. I mean, hell, I didn't even find out about Kate Bush's song until after I actually saw Stranger Things. I even saw 331 Rock's metal version of Up the Hill. So, or Running Up the Hill, I'm sorry. But like, you see, it doesn't really matter how you discover it. If you enjoy it, you enjoy it. And I think that's the sort of kind of walls I'm trying to break down here. But there's a lot more to that. One particular second, I'm trying to how did that happen? No, I don't want that. Yeah, we'll just reset it. It doesn't matter. I do agree. Gatekeeping is in fact overrated. And there's going to be friends of mine that disagree with me, and I respectfully disagree back. I don't believe that it's something that we should enforce as a rule or as something that blockades everybody from that. I believe everyone has the right to enjoy that particular part of music. Anyway, now as we continue, we are going to the topic at hand here. Dun, 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 dun. Now, I actually just ordered my Hellfire shirt, so my Hellfire Club t-shirt will probably be here within probably 4 or 5 days, possibly 6, because again, I don't think you really count the weekends as part of that. So, as I have seen all the episodes of Stranger Things, including with the appearances of Eddie Munson, I've actually observed the character, and I've also observed kind of the common traits between, how I am and how this character was, and also characters around too. You had other characters in returning characters. You had Dustin Henderson, you had Mike Wheeler. Those are the two that were pretty much accepted by Eddie into that area. So Eddie Munson was also based upon a real life event, which is, I believe, was called the Tennessee 3. I believe it was regarded to me as And that controversy was also surrounding the controversy of Satanism and all of these other areas combined. As it turns out, I believe it was one person out of that group, or maybe the three. I could be wrong. Please feel free to correct me on the history of that. I might actually have the two either mixed. But as it turns out, I believe one of them was completely innocent and wasn't involved in any of these activities, or the three weren't involved in any of the activities. So Wes Smith was three. So, okay, so I've got the majority of that right. So apparently they were accused of activities that they really had no involvement in, and there was, I guess, evidence that kind of contradicted the area of this, however they served time for those particular events. Eddie Munson happens to be the character that kind of embodies that sort of controversy that was going on back either in the early 80s or mid 80s, depending on the events in the time at that point. But as we see the episodes, we kind of see the plot unfold between a mysterious force known as Vecna, or Number One, or as his real name goes, as Henry. It's funny how I can catch up on the lore on that, and I've only seen season 4. Because in other seasons, as I have also learned, is that there is also pretty much the Mind Flayer. You also have the Demogorgons, and then you also have the Demo Dogs. Well, like I said, I've seen certain clips back in season 2 and season 3, and I agree, Jason is one of the worst right there. I did not care for his death. I was like, you know what, thank God, because this guy pissed me off with so many scenes, including stepping on Max's cassette player, being a complete dick to Eddie Munson. But I enjoyed how he was, and I really wish I kind of had that courage to kind of act the way that he did. But it kind of all because they were playing a fantasy game called D&D is what was surrounding the controversy that was written in a book that had parents and psychologists concerned. Again, I apologize for my speediness and my talking. But as this kind of unfolds, there happens to be kind of like an unfortunate timing. But there is a character, I haven't kind of caught up a little bit because there are certain parts that are kind of missing from my mind here. But I do know that I believe 4 victims were necessary for Vecna to kill in order to open a gate in Hawkins. But to start to the very beginning, we actually had a character named Chrissy, who happens to be a popular cheerleader who was going through pretty much the I wouldn't call the delusions of guilt, but pretty much going underneath the fear of it. And that's pretty much what kind of leads to it. Eventually, we get to a point where there's a scene between her and Eddie, and this happens to be a very loving moment. Even though it's a very short moment, though, that we see, it's a very genuine and friendly and, an intimate moment, you could say. I'm not entirely sure about romantic, but there happens to be technically some history between the two. But it happens to be a certain type of moment where all of her, her troubles are kind of in the back of her head, and she's just focused on being happy, seeing somebody who's making her laugh and all that. You have Eddie Munson right there, just being himself, but being nice and being, genuine with the heart. A lot of people can point out, well, he's selling drugs to her, but in a case like this, could you really blame Chrissy for that? And not to mention, she's actually feeling a moment of positivity in front of Eddie Munson, and everyone adores this scene. Even I adore it. That's the kind of moment I think everyone likes about this. Let's see, D&D monsters. D&D isn't actually evil. If anything, it makes math fun. And yeah, that's really what it is. It's fantasy and math. That's basically what it is. And pretty much storytelling as you go and choosing the path and pretty much how you use that probability. And if anything, I'd definitely prefer Eddie over Billy any day. If I had to choose between the two, I don't care if Eddie wasn't even stronger than Billy. I'd choose Eddie to be like the guy I would always fight with, because you know what, that guy would be loyal. I'd say that. But now we fast forward into the point. During a basketball game, we also have a D&D game going on at the exact same time. And as the game is unfolding, they're pretty much going over the scenarios, and however it seems like the probability is stacked up against the group, and Eddie's, letting Dustin, Mike, and everybody else know that there's no shame in running, because he's basically the master of the game. They're playing the Cult of Vecna is pretty much that particular area. But as the game unfolds, they pretty much win that effort, and Eddie Munson, he takes it like a champ. Like, he loses the game, but he takes it like a champ. And like, that is a certain person who, you know, who indeed loses, but like, he does it with dignity. He's the kind of person like, yep, I lost, I bow to you. But now we start getting into a more serious area, as now Christy and Eddie are pretty much about to make that exchange for like drugs and money because of the way she's kind of going through some stuff. And I feel, and that's obviously the creeping of Vecna coming to get her. And that is when Eddie discovers that Christy herself is now under this magical, or pretty much this demonic illusion. And this is where the whole entire Christy Wake Up song comes from. And like, it's everywhere. It's funny, but it's like, it's so weird. Chrissy, I don't like this. Chrissy, wake up. It's become a tune. And I loved it. And there is a key point in this where you eventually see Eddie talk with Dustin, and he meets Dustin's friends as he made that encounter with Steve with the beer bottle. But he tells him, like, he didn't know what to do, and he just ran away. He didn't know exactly what it was. He considered himself a coward at that point. But like, as we all seen, like, what would you have done in that scenario? That kind of situation is out of your control. If we were actually in those shoes, if there's nothing we could do. If you see someone levitating up in the air, and their bones are snapping, and they're pretty much being kind of ripped in one angle and another, there's nothing you can do at that point. Your best bet is like, okay, I'm sorry, well, I have to get the hell out of here, because otherwise you'd be next. So he can't really blame himself for that particular part, but that's kind of how his character is, kind of fleshed out there. But eventually we get to the point where they're trying to clear his name. They're trying to do all of what they can. They eventually discover the portals that lead into the outside area. And as we fast forward, we pretty much figure out that, okay, there's a portal where Chrissy died, and they go through that portal, and that portal is pretty much left there. I kind of like skipped past the part where they discovered a portal that was underneath the lake, and that's going to lead me into a section of what people were arguing about. Spoiler alert. Rest in peace, Eddie. But we'll get to that moment momentarily. So now, as we fast forward, I want to kind of get into one of my favorite parts here. Apart from stealing the RV, but like, there was a just awestruck moment between Dustin Henderson and Eddie Munson as they're having this like brotherly moment, because he's just like, there will be no more retreating from Eddie the Banished. And Dustin's trying to tell a joke to him. He's like, you're ready for battle. And he gives him this look, but like, at first you think this look is like, wow, really? That was kind of cringe. But like, underneath that look, you could tell that Eddie Munson was like, I love the crap out of this kid. You could tell, like, he loves him like a brother now. He's like, you could just instantly get the vibe feeling, because at the split second you feel like, but then it starts to be like how Dustin's right. He's like, no. You see that smile on Eddie's face, and he's just playfully trying to like tackle him in a way. So they start play fighting, and they're enjoying everything. He's trying to give him a wedgie, and then there's that captivating moment where he just places both his arms right around Dustin. He's like, and he tells him, and I think this is not only telling Dustin Henderson, but I feel like it's also a moment where he's telling us, not just Dustin, but he's telling us to never change. And I feel like that's one of the best messages that I have ever actually, seen as an audience. I've never actually felt like a moment that was really, what's the better word for compelling? I feel like there is a greater moment where your heart reacts in such a way when you hear that message, because I just felt like it wasn't just Dustin that received that message. It was for everybody else. I feel like in a way that was sort of breaking the fourth wall in a heartwarming way. It's heartbreaking, but heartwarming, because a character that you think at first you're going to be like, oh my gosh, like, I can't stand this character. But like, as you progress into this story in season 4, I mean, yeah, you have 3 different scenarios going on, like in other states, But as you see Eddie's story, you just start loving his character so much. Like a character who has actually just been on the top point, who has been on the peak of love and respect. I mean, with other characters, there's other characters in that particular part of the story, and that even goes including from probably season 3 and 2 and 1. I still have to see the full episodes of those, but I have seen some clips. But like, if I were to put anyone else in the S tier category with Eddie Munson, I will say Murray and Hopper definitely there. I definitely put Murray and Hopper there, and I even put Dustin in the S tier catalog. Okay, and the reason for that, because Dustin, I will include Dustin in this particular part of the subject, is that in my own personal perspective, I think Dustin himself actually has a special ability of his own. It may sound like, well, that doesn't really sound like anything. And bear in mind, I'm keeping an eye on the chat right here, so I'm still reading what you guys are saying. But like, I feel like Dustin actually has a special ability of his own, and that he always finds the right people to be friends with, because I feel like he sees the best in people. And I think that's a tremendous part of his character. Now, I do kind of feel like in some way with him and Steve, like kind of their relationship kind of took a tad bit of a step back, but they're still like, they're still good with each other. But I kind of felt like it was a step back in that sense. But that's a no biggie, because I know that their chemistry is still set where it is. But that was just my perspective of it. But with Dustin and Eddie's relationship, kind of like brothers, it just kind of made you felt like you were a part of that too. And it's a heartwarming aspect of it that I really feel like everyone else got to be a part of that moment. And it's something that everyone enjoys. And I feel like, you haven't really felt closer to a character than that before. And I think that's kind of, the great purpose of that. Now, as for Jason, for his character, totally despise that character altogether. Because again, when someone looks at a jock or a popular student or a popular, athlete, or, people tend to look up to these kind of people because they're strong, they're athletic, they possibly have the right way of saying things or whatnot, or they have the charisma, they have the confidence. But that's not always the case, and that kind of sometimes goes with a trope in some forms. But with this particular character, it's kind of like the reverse set of the Breakfast Club. It's kind of like the reverse set, because you have Eddie Munson, who's supposed to be, kind of the Judd Nelson, as opposed to Jason, who is supposed to be the Emilio Estevez. But you kind of see the reflections turn between these characters, because you have one character who's supposed to look menacing in a sense, but like he's kind-hearted and he accepts people for who they are. He doesn't even care if you're white or black. He doesn't care. If you're part of that group, you are part of that group. It does not matter who you are. And again, never change. Never change who you are. As for Jason, well, even though it doesn't kind of really deflect much from that, he's an asshole. That's his character. Although not much big of an asshole than Billy from seasons 3 and 2, still in that sense, he has this blind set of morality of a conservative Christian. I mean, hell, I just feel like it's sort of weird. And it gets me to another subject that kind of regards Eddie's death in a way, but I want to actually touch upon that too. That's like the second thing I want to kind of reflect upon, because that's sort of a metaphor in the sense. But after we actually have that heartfelt moment, I like to fast forward to the part where it's my favorite part of all. They're in the Upside Down. Steve, Nancy, and Robin are going to Vecna's, lair, his house. And in order to get inside the house, there has to be a distraction. And Eddie Munson and Dustin provide that distraction by playing one of my most favorite songs from Metallica of all times, and that is Master of Puppets. And I got to thank Joe Quinn very much for doing this, because I feel like that kind of gave me a resurge of like hypeness to it. I've never felt like I was re-hyped on something. Just like I found it out at work, and I just saw that picture of him like on the guitar. I even saw Robert Trujillo like posting on Instagram about it. It's like, you know what? I really got to check this out. And that's how I discovered, by watching certain scenes of Eddie Munson. It's like, okay, I'm invested in this guy now. And because of that, I started giving it a chance. And now I started falling in love with watching Stranger Things in that sense because of this character. Now, I talked about tiers before. I even made my own tier. I didn't realize that someone had made an MVP tier above an S tier. So if I had to say Eddie Munson, even though for the short amount of time that he had in that season, he would be in the MVP tier above S tier, in my opinion. And you know what? Because I loved Eddie Munson so much as a character, I immediately had to get a shirt. And I even actually got a picture right here. So until I get a poster, like I got a picture right here because I love, his character so much, and that's one of the few characters, along with some few fictional characters that I've actually seen in my life. You had characters like Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption 2. You had Obi-Wan Kenobi, pretty much Ewan McGregor and Alec Guinness. Those two played Obi-Wan Kenobi perfectly. You have Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator in Terminator 2. Dude, let's not forget Yondu from the Marvel universe or the Marvel Cinematic Universe, who actually played, even though he wasn't exactly kind of like the best father figure, he's pretty much one who sacrificed himself for his son, his son-like figure, Star-Lord in that sense. That's another one I can actually say. And also with one of my other favorite fictional characters, also played by, and rest in peace, Brandon Lee, the Crow. I believe these characters together, which all they have in common is that they've all passed away in that sense. What they all have in common is that they actually have a character trait that kind of connects dear to us, not only in heart and spirit, but also within our minds as well, too, that we don't forget, because these characters serve as a positive reinforcement for us to better ourselves in our lives. And I think that serves a greater purpose. Even if they are fictional characters, it doesn't take away from that fact. Now, let us go right into the point after the Master of Puppets area. So now, as Dustin and Eddie Munson are pretty much stuck in the trailer, they're fighting off the bats. Now we have a scene to a point where Dustin and Eddie are attempting to get away. Dustin gets through into the portal, and Eddie is about to climb up, but then he pauses for a moment. And this is something I want to touch upon, because I think this is one thing that a lot of people had missed, because there's even arguments, and this is where I have to respectfully disagree with Alex from the Angry Joe Show. I have to respectfully disagree with from some of the arguments that were said here, but I think there was a lot more to it than just, cutting off the ties to keep the bats from going into the portal from that, or distracting time away from, the bats going back to the house. There was a lot more that was added to that, and I believe there was a variable that everybody missed. The thing about it was, when Eddie stopped for a moment, he kind of paused and he went down, because I think, in my personal perspective, he thought about Chrissy. Chrissy was one person he definitely couldn't save, and he felt guilty about it. So what did he do? He ran away, and he felt guilty over that. But as Dustin made it through the portal safely, he stopped right there and he severed the tie, or he actually cut the apron string, to keep Dustin from coming back through, because he also wanted to keep the portal from actually being accessed. But again, it could still be accessed if the other three came back, but he wanted to buy more time. But it wasn't just to buy more time away, with the bats from the house. By saving Dustin in that sense, it makes it feel like a weight is lifted off of his shoulders that he couldn't save Chrissy. And by saving Dustin, that weight is lifted off of him. But it's not enough, though. So now, as he's drawing the bats away, he's riding off on a bike. He's riding off for dear life, and he's taunting the bats, trying to get him away, keeping Dustin safe and keeping the other three inside the lair. That way they can actually finish off Vecna in that sense. Now it comes to a point where he gets hit by a bat, he crashes, and he's continuing to run. And then he has an ultimate moment right here where he finally realizes something that he kept saying, that kept reflecting in his mind, that he kept saying, that he kept running away, and he was done running away. Now, this is something else that I want to pretty much contrast. Every single one of Vecna's victims have been trying to run away. You actually had Fred Benson, I believe. You had Chrissy. I think you also had Patrick, I believe, too, who also fell victim to Vecna during the time where Eddie was present during that, and pretty much Eddie's blamed for the entire events regarding it as a satanic ritual murder or whatnot, yada, yada, yada. Unlike all four, which I am not dissing Max's character, because there's a lot more complexity with Max's guilt, with Billy as part with Vecna's plan. But as opposed to all four of these, who in fact, and we'll get into Max in just a moment, who in fact fell victim to Vecna's trap and to his deadly spell, Eddie Munson is the odd man out in this section. Why is that? Because he himself actually had guilt for Chrissy's death. Vecna could have used that against Eddie. He could have been his fourth kill. But something that we obviously saw is that Eddie said, fuck it. I'm not running away anymore. He decides to turn around, and this is like his ultimate badass moment. He's like, he pulls out that spear. He pulls out his makeshift trash can shield, and he, unlike all four, and again, not dissing Max, he decides to face his guilt, and he decides to face Vecna's creatures just head on. And I think this is what creates an ultimate moment for that character. Even though there was nothing for him to blame himself about, he still felt like personally it was something that he needed to face. But like, that's just my perspective on it. And it's good to see you, by the way, Kyle Stewart. I missed you. And good to see you, Chelsea. And yes, Samuel, it's good to see you. And like I said, Orlando, thank you very much for being here, by the way. But like with Eddie Munson's character, he did a lot more than just face his guilt. He did more than save Dustin. He did save an entire town that hated him. But like, he chose to evolve from a character who kind of considered himself, in his perspective, kind of a coward. He was never a coward to begin with, but he was a character who learned to grow and decided to face his mistakes. Now, here's something else, though. Notice how the entire town is hunting Eddie in the opposite side of the world, on the opposite end. There is a ginormous amount of bats, and they're all heading towards Eddie. This to me is like a metaphorical example of Eddie facing a opposite side of an entire town that's hunting him down. But he decides to face off this corrupted metaphorical version of that town. This is just my perspective of it, by the way. It's sort of symbolism that this is kind of like a symbolism of an entire town that's hunting after him, and he's ready to just face it, and he's just swiping them down. But like, it comes to a point where a bat gets a hold of him, and he drags him down, and all the bats scurry over, and they start biting him. They start killing him in that sense. And he's laying there, and Dustin is coming over, and he's just holding him, and it's heartbreaking. I have seen a lot of people break down in tears. I was breaking down in tears because he says that line. He's like, I didn't run away this time, right? And Dustin, he's just heartbroken, because this is like the first time in his life that he's holding somebody in his arms and they're dying. He's dying in his arms. And that's something that, like, it's something so hard for people to handle. Because a character who hasn't been through hasn't been through many seasons. He's only been in one season. For a character to actually have a very short span, has been on the very top of the pinnacle, doing so much, even though for a little amount of time he's done so much. He sacrifices himself. He learns to overcome his guilt or his fear. He learns to protect. He is determined to protect a town and protect someone he loves that has treated him like a brother. And a lot of people are going to throw around, well, Steve, Nancy, and Robin didn't really have any concerns. Well, we don't exactly know about that because, again, 2 days have passed. And again, this is something else I also have to add in. Dustin broke his leg when he fell into that area. And bear in mind, the mattress and the chair are not there. How would he have gone through that? And this is something else I think Alex may have, from Angry Joe Show, was trying to point out, is that why didn't the bats go through the portal that they were in originally? Okay, bear in mind, they swam through a lake that went through there. That's the gate Patrick died in. Bats can't swim in water. So it doesn't make sense for them to go all the way over there when the portal is right there and the house is right there. Because again, with Dustin and his broken leg, Steve himself, again, you got to remember Steve is pretty much that parental figure to Dustin. Steve isn't just going to let Dustin stay there. that would kill any purpose of Steve being a highly developed character. Because back then, in season 1, I believe, right, he was considered an asshole, but his character had evolved in time, and his relationship his relationship with Dustin Henderson had also grown in that time. So it does not make sense that would happen, or they would leave Eddie and just be not concerned about it at all. I just believe that this is just some sort of, something that they're possibly leaving, possibly for right now, the interpretation of what's going on. And we'll get into the possible theories. And that's also another reason why I've left a link to the petition down, by the way. We will get into that. So it seems to me that Nancy, Robin, and Steve eventually would have to come across Dustin, and there would definitely be an emotional scene there, because it doesn't make sense that they would just leave it like that and just not have any regard to it. I just believe that there might be a point in time where I guess even Steve himself would be like, well, this dude wasn't a bad dude, and I think there should be a moment where Steve, comforts Dustin, like he gives him a hug and is like, I'm so sorry, man. There should have been a moment right there that should have happened. And I believe that might be flashbacks for season 5. And that is why forever Eddie Munson will be one of my top favorite characters of all time, in regards with characters like Arthur Morgan, the Terminator, Yondu, Brandon Lee's The Crow, or Eric Draven for that sense. It's just, to me, that's the sort of characters that we need more of in this point of time. And also, if you guys haven't really seen, he's also who is pretty much portrayed by Joe Quinn. He's also made an appearance before in Game of Thrones as one of the Watchkeepers, I believe. That pretty much is run by Jon Snow. If you haven't seen that, I do advise that you do that. I'm surprised I didn't provide a link to it. Excuse me. I'm going to wait for this thing to unblur itself. Thank you. Okay, so there are possible theories of this going on. But before we get into the theories, this is something else I want to also point out. Ever since the character of Eddie Munson had passed on from the series, there has been a petition that was made to bring Eddie Munson back, bring his character back, and to actually have a happy ending to it. Since then, now, currently as we speak, it is over 75,000 signatures. Beforehand, this was about 50,000. Now it's all the way to 75,000, and hoping to reach 150,000. So what I encourage you, if you don't want to, that's completely fine. No one is obligated to do this. This is just if you feel like that's what you want to do, or if you feel differently otherwise, by all means, nobody's judging you. But if you want, I highly encourage you to spread that petition around, because I do hope that we could bring Eddie Munson's character back in that, because there are also theories that are also speculating around, which kind of involve the lore of D&D. Now, in this lore of D&D, Vecna actually has I believe, a lieutenant that goes by the name of Cass the Betrayer, who I believe is a vampire-like figure that turns on Vecna, and therefore ultimately playing a big role in Vecna's demise. Now, I do believe that other characters, I'm an idiot right now because I'm having a brain fart, but Lucas's sister, and also with 11, and I believe in some sense Max will play a big role in Vecna's demise, but I think it would be perfect for Eddie's character to also play a critical role in that sense, because Eddie's character kind of fits that role, because Master of Puppets happens to be another symbolism to being a puppet to Vecna. Obviously, I know the original concept of the song, it's about drug addiction. I've learned that a long time ago, but I'm saying in this sense of Eddie's character, it would make a lot more sense for his character to actually come back as pretty much someone who's controlled by Vecna and being pretty much a servant of Vecna, but eventually betraying Vecna, because it makes much sense in that lore of D&D, and it kind of reflects the easy amount of timing it would be within that part of the season. And I think also Dustin would have a big role in that effect as well too. And I'm hoping that is what we get here, because that's something that I feel like would be so near and dear to me. And, ever since watching all of this, I have been hyped up for days, and it doesn't feel like it's dying down anytime soon, because I have been watching everybody's reactions. And again, I've watched a lot from, Angry Joe Show all the way to other channels as well too. I could link those, but that would take me kind of a moment. But I just feel like that was a lot. Now, there are certain Easter eggs about this that I did like about this. I mean, let's point out the obvious one. You had the Master of Puppets one, which was Metallica. If some of you didn't catch on, we also had Max's scene where she's actually blinded. She can't feel or hear, or she can't feel or see anything. And I feel like that's a Easter egg to Metallica's One, by the way, which kind of fits into the lyrics. In certain part of the lyrics, hold my breath as I wish for death. Oh, please God, wake me. Darkness imprisoning me. Hold on a second, bring it up. Darkness imprisoning me. All that I see, absolute horror. I cannot live. I cannot die. Trapped in myself. Body, my human cell. So it kind of fits that in that sense. And we also had Eddie Munson's vest that actually had the Dio logo, or pretty much the album of Dio, which foreshadows the events of Stranger Things 5. If you haven't seen that closely, I recommend that you do. You see pretty much like a city in between with the giant logo of the demon of Dio in between all that, foreshadowing the events of Stranger Things 5. Don't believe me? Look at the vest yourself. This is something that I also found a little bit irritating because there are other channels that keep saying the word Dio. It's Dio. 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 Sorry. Anyway, which reminded me of one scene that I forgot to tell everybody. This is music. I forgot to mention that scene. I should have mentioned that. That was the area right there. Johnny got his gun. That is actually a movie I'm still yet to see because that is one about a man who pretty much loses his sight, his hearing, and his speaking because I believe there was a bomb that fell on top, and he is forced to wear a conscribed mask to him, which he's calling out an SOS to kill him, to have himself killed, but nobody can hear him until I think a nurse finally understands his message of SOS. How do you feel like Eddie's actor looking like I think that looks pretty cool. I think he looks kind of like Robert Downey Jr. and Heath Ledger. Not a whole lot of people are going to agree with me on that, but I think he also does look like a bit of Heath Ledger as well, too. I just died in your arms by Cutting Crew intensifies. There's that, too. There's also a Judas Priest poster that was hanging up in Eddie Munson's area right there. So that's another area there. Making JoJo's Rabbit Bizarre Adventure references with Dio. Oh, gosh. I think that was another thing that kind of contributed a little bit into Stranger Things as well, too. So we had that. Now, clarify with me with this if I'm wrong, but I do believe Steve still actually has Eddie's vest. I'm not sure because Eddie no longer is wearing the vest at the time when they re-entered the Upside Down. Steve was the last person who had the vest. And I feel like that's kind of an important detail either they missed or they're saving for something else because, Dustin ended up having Eddie's necklace, who he ended up giving to Eddie's father. And he tells him, like, he's not only innocent, he's absolutely a hero for what he did. And that was another heartbreaking moment because Eddie's uncle breaks down. And I wonder if Eddie's uncle is also going to be playing a bigger role in this as well, too. And I hope he does. So, and yes, I know it's Eddie's uncle, not his father, because there was no mention pretty much of his mother or father. As far as I'm aware, that was a part I missed. His uncle was the only person, apart from Eddie and apart from Chrissy, that actually had this close connection with Eddie. Now, I don't believe necessarily that the group didn't care about Eddie's demise. I think that was something that might have been accidentally pushed out, but they might actually leave some room for that to be kind of to go back into. If they actually have a little bit more episodes and one particular episode to kind of cover everything that we kind of, were expecting to cover, then yes. Was there any other detail that I missed apart from the Eddie Van Halen look that Eddie Munson had? That's pretty much all of the details I could really go over because I really want to see more of Eddie Munson in the final season. I really want him to have a happy ending. And, you know, some people will say, like, well, if you bring Eddie Munson back, it's not going to mean much for his death. I mean, not necessarily true. I mean, given the chance that he can, like I said, again, come back as Vecna's lieutenant, and then he ultimately betrays Vecna in the end and helps contribute to 11, Max, and Lucas's sister defeating Vecna, because I believe Lucas's sister will play a very vital role in this, by the way, because she was in fact the one who helped in the defeat of Eddie's mastermind game in D&D. So she had the strategic mind. She was pretty much the one that led the entire group to victory in that game. I think that is foreshadowing the events of that she's going to be playing a bigger role in the demise of Vecna, and I think that is kind of a tremendous thing to go with right there. Apart from that, any miscellaneous notes? I will say this though, because some people have pointed out that I have in fact look like a lot like Dustin. Not Dustin. I'm sorry. I meant to say Jonathan, not Dustin. Dustin Henderson, different character. Jonathan, on the other hand, is the character that people say I look a lot like, and I agree. And I actually like Jonathan's character. I do. He went from a person who got bullied into a person who was actually more in sync with Steve's character, or the character of Steve is what I meant to say. And I feel like there is still pretty much that weird part about him and Nancy either breaking up or staying together. I don't know. That's something I'm still trying to kind of go into that. I mean, I wouldn't mind that. I would not mind that evolution of being a stoner. I mean, hell, I've smoked weed. So the character is not different from me, man. I could actually go with that. Let me go ahead and load this up real quick. Am I missing anything? No, I am not. I'm also going to get a better thumbnail for this, by the way, too. Jonathan and Argyle, oh my gosh. Argyle, he's another character I actually do enjoy. Not, like, unlike some people that I know, but like Jonathan and Argyle are kind of like the Cheech and Chong here in this season, I believe. Just, hold on to your butts, bro, chachos. Now, like, I wonder if they're all going to touch up on Argyle's. He's got like a love interest now. Like he's got like his eyes set on a particular chick in that season now. Yeah, and he got thrown into a moment where he's driving a dying man who kind of protected their ass from the military, and his name was like, "What do I do here? Is he dead? Oh my god!" Ah! Oh my gosh. But I also do feel bad for Will's character as well too. He doesn't get a break, and I also feel like Will's character is actually going to have a big effect in the next season. But again, I have to binge watch now seasons 1, 2, and 3 to get caught up on all this. But like, I'm surprised I actually got a lot of the lore of it down, because I believe the first episode is like the disappearance of Will, and that's kind of like what does this. But there's something else I think we all missed, by the way. This involves Joyce, and this also involves Eddie. There's 2 different moments where Joyce is trying to wake Will up. You see physical comparisons between Eddie and Joyce. Whoever made this reel, by the way, I'd like to thank you. Like, I don't know where this reel is, by the way. If I do find it, I will link it here. But I would like to thank this person, whoever you are, for making this reel, to making these 2 scene comparisons, because I feel like in a way that's touching up on something here. You have Joyce, you have Eddie, and they look so much alike. It's weird. And I'm just wondering if that has any significance, because the 2 scenes are playing out the same. You have Eddie trying to wake Chrissy up. You have Joyce trying to wake Will up. These are 2 comparing scenes that seem to pan out the same. Like, is it just coincidence, or is it something that they're really trying to like bridge a dot here with? I could always be wrong. I'm always willing to admit that I can be wrong. But like, it seems a little bit too coincidental to me in that point. But as a matter of fact, while we're doing this, let me go ahead and move this mic here for just a moment. Because I'm going to currently check up upon the status of the petition that was made on Eddie Munson. If I recall the character deaths, Max technically died, but she kind of came back, but she's in a coma. But like the 4 characters that we had that fell victim to, we had I think it was Fred Benson. I think he was involved in killing somebody. I don't know if it was a car wreck or whatnot. I could be wrong. That's one kind of thing I did kind of forget about. I didn't really kind of see much of his character, so I kind of forgot a bit about his. You had Patrick's death, who died at the lake chasing after Eddie Munson while Eddie was trying to get away off the boat. He ended up dying. The next person, well, you had Chrissy's death too. Let's not forget Chrissy, because Chrissy was also back there. Then you had Patrick, and then you had Max. So again, that's the sort of kind of pattern we're kind of following here. So, and in regards to that, in real life though, Joe Quinn actually had an emotional moment after he was yelled at by the Comic-Con staff because he was taking too long, spending time with fans, and I really think that's kind of a shitty thing to do from a Comic-Con series or whatever con it may be. Because you have someone who's spending time with fans and trying to, make sure that every single fan has been satisfied. And I think it's a wonderful thing that someone is using that amount of time to make sure that everyone has gotten their fair encounter in their fair areas, getting an autograph or whatnot. Personally, for me, I don't really care about autographs. The fact I get to shake a person's hand or, say thank you. I haven't really done that because I haven't really met Joe Quinn. But if given that opportunity, if I actually pay my money, I'll just no autograph or anything needed or picture, just a handshake. Same thing with Metallica. I don't need an autograph. I don't really need a picture with them. Just the fact that I could shake their hands and say thank you very much for what you've done, and it's really something that I think has touched a lot of people. It's touched my heart. That's enough for me. I don't need anything else more. But I feel like when you watch the moment of Joe Quinn, having that emotional moment, crying and breaking down in tears because a fan stood up and told him how much that he's done so much for people. And I think it was a good thing for that fan to say what she said. And I'm glad that it really, really gave that feeling, because I really wish, I really hope that Joe Quinn actually has that opportunity to come back. And, I just kind of feel like since Eddie Munson's death, it just kind of just leaves you like lost in a sense. It leaves you sad, but it still leaves you like happy with the fact that you have a character that you can relate with, because they have a pattern of putting new characters on the show and then killing them off, and they're likable characters. You had Bob, you had what was his name? It was like Alexei or whatever his name was. I think he was a Russian scientist, and he was having a good time at a carnival, and he ended up getting killed because he got shot. And those are 2 good characters. Eddie Munson was among those new characters, but I felt like he was a character that really deserved a lot more time. And I just feel like when they killed him off, it kind of just left a lot of us just heartbroken and lost in that sense, because a character that we loved and enjoyed, they kind of showed us a moral lesson that you don't have to change who you are. I mean, yeah, if you have to go work a job, I mean, yeah, you work in a uniform for about maybe 8 to 9 hours or maybe even 12 hours. But at the end of the day, you can still be who you want to be. You don't have to compromise who you are. And I think that's a moral lesson that Eddie Munson himself as a character has portrayed, and not only portrayed, but has shared that lesson to a lot of viewers and to a lot of people, that you don't need to give up who you are as a person. Because if you give up who you are as a person, it's like somebody else, you're just living somebody else's life because they want you to live the way that they want to. And you shouldn't have to do that. And I feel like that's a good lesson for us to learn, is that being yourself into the highest degree that you can be possibly is the best way to go. Not anybody else's, the way that you go. I have people that tell me, like, why do you dress the way that you dress? Because I love it. Why do I need it? I mean, it's not bad to have certain, a change up in like wardrobe or whatnot, but like it's something of me that I don't want to give up, because I feel like it's me and I love it and it makes me happy. And that's the thing about Eddie's character that I really enjoy very much. that he doesn't just define being yourself, but he defines a person you can look up to, or a person you can relate to, or a person that you can trust, or someone who would stand by you and be so loyal to you, or to be loving to you, not only as a friend, but also as someone who would treat you like family. And I think that's one of the greatest personality traits that Eddie Munson himself had portrayed. And I just feel like when he's gone, I mean, since he's gone, it felt like, it kind of felt like, and I'm not dissing the Duffer Brothers, but it kind of felt like they just took their hand and shoved it right into the part where our heart was, and they just ripped out our heart and they just squeezed it. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, but like, it just kind of felt like it was sort of unfair. And that it's the same kind of heartbreak with characters like Arthur Morgan. Now, if anybody here is not familiar with the character of Arthur Morgan, if you played the game Red Dead Redemption 2, you start out as an outlaw in a gang, and eventually, as you play this game, you can decide the honorable roles between dishonorable and being honorable. But obviously, we all know what the right story path is, because we see an evolution of an outlaw who can be cruel, mean, ruthless at times, but like you start seeing, as he starts experiencing tuberculosis, in that sense, ever since when he beat a man to death, he starts dying, but he starts realizing, he wants to better himself as a human being because he's dying. He starts to realize, this is what's happening now, and this is the reality that I have to face. And he starts doing these good things as he's dying. His character starts to evolve, and you start seeing how heartbreaking it is, because when you get to that point of his ending, where he saves the lives of the people that he loves, he ends up dying alone on a mountain. And he had one of the greatest character developments. And I think that's something else that Eddie Munson himself, he looks intimidating, but he's actually a character that is loving and caring. Yeah, he can be rebellious. He can be sometimes, in that funny sense of crazy, or sometimes like, what's that word I'm looking for? He could be crazy, or he can sometimes be a little bit like off, but like, he was a character that never gave up on people. He never abandoned anybody. And, he was a character that stuck true and loyal and loving to a character like Dustin. And, that's something that I don't think anybody's going to ever forget. And that also creates one of the greatest moments of cinema history with Eddie Munson. And I believe that's something that, that will never be forgotten. And that is why I encourage a lot of people to sign that petition. In that sense, I encourage you to do it if you want to. But I just felt like there was something positive. There's so much positivity from this. And thank you, Joe Quinn, for one of the most legendary characters. Thank you, Metallica, for having Master of Puppets being played by Joe Quinn and Eddie Munson, and being a part of something bigger. Thank you for not only creating a visual masterpiece together, the both of you guys, but also thank you for also breaking a barrier between different generations in the form of music, in that sense, because now newer fans and older fans are now starting to come together. And that's a barrier that I feel like we should break. And that's a good thing. And it's something huge. If Metallica and Joe Quinn, Eddie Munson, could do those things together, and that collaboration to kind of open the eyes and ears of people and bring people together in a collective manner, in something that is for all, imagine what so many other things can do, not just in the form of music, but in art and acting and cinema, in community, or in anything like that. It doesn't exclude any criteria or any topic as well. Imagine how much barriers you could break down in that form of generations, because with generations, we're so divided with everything. We're contrasting so much differently from other generations. What other generations see as either evil or looked down upon, or just not, it doesn't seem like it's supposed to fit into society. the next generation thinks of it so much differently. And it's happened with us too. We see something that we feel like we grow older from, and we feel like, if you like this, then no, you need to grow up and you need to do that, because that has happened before in reality. There's people like us that have actually gone through it, and we feel like, for example, Pokemon, for example, was part of that stigma. Believe it or not. The more you got older, the more you started like, you know what, I'm way too old for Pokemon. It's only for kids. But now, as years have gone by, everything else along with Pokemon has changed with that. And I feel like that's something else that kind of like is a comparison here. We start growing older, but we start realizing that, why lose yourself? Why compromise yourself? Why change? What is wrong with loving what you loved back then? Because that becomes a part of you. And again, that is the lesson here that we're learning from what Eddie Munson has told us, to never change, never compromise who you are, never lose yourself. Whatever you love is what you love, and no one has that right to tell you or to dictate to you what you can and cannot love and what is a part of your life. That is the lesson, and that is why I'm so drawn to this character. That is why I feel the relationship with this character so much, just like with any other character that I've seen in fictional history. And it doesn't just have to be fictional characters. There are real life people out in the world that do define this as well. Cliff Burton from Metallica, the former bassist of Metallica, I believe would have loved this. He was a man who didn't just love metal. He loved classical music. He loved country. He loved blues. So just because if you love something, that doesn't mean you have to love something else and that has to go away. No. Cliff Burton is a real life person. In comparison, I'm not saying in comparison in a bad way, but like the comparison between these two is that they share the common interests that you don't have to give up who you are. And that is the beauty of it. And that's what I love about how this is kind of a unified effort now. So what I want to say to any gatekeeper out there of Metallica, let it go. Let it go. There is no exclusion. There is no reason why this should be exclusive to certain people. This sort of thing is something for all of us to enjoy. We all start at ground zero. Metallica has said this, that we all start at ground zero at some point. Let me give you an example of why, before I get into the main reason. But like, I've discovered Metallica when I was 6 years old. Master of Puppets and Enter Sandman were the first two songs that I had actually listened to. My mom would constantly tell me the story of how I would actually sing Enter Sandman, like as a child. I was like, what? Like, that was me at 6 years old singing that song. I remember singing Master of Puppets when I was in the shower once. I discovered it on either, I believe it was an old radio box or pretty much one of my dad's, cassette tapes or CDs that he had. And that's how I discovered that. Now, I discovered many different songs from video games too. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, 4, Underground, and Underground 2. I discovered many great songs with these as well too. And I feel like no one really has that right to judge people. If you've discovered something from a different time on a video game, from a movie, from a cassette tape, from CDs, it doesn't matter where. The fact that you discovered something and you actually have that interest towards that discovery is for you and for you alone. It's not for anyone else to give that sort of depiction of how you discovered, or how sad it may be, or how pathetic it may be. That's null and void. For any fan from Gen Z, even to a boomer fan, or maybe even a generation before that, if that's the sort of case, it doesn't exclude anybody. And again, that's the beauty of it. And that's why I'm glad that we're taking a step forward. It's a very slow step, but it is a step forward. And that kind of restores my faith in humanity a bit. And I'm just glad I'm able to touch upon that, because a character like this was able to bring out more of why I feel like a lot of positivity and a lot of great feelings around this do give a lot of light to a lot of controversial subjects. But there's still a little bit more time to the stream, so I'm gonna kind of go through the chatter real quick. But I just want to say, thank you, Chelsea. Thank you, Kyle, Orlando. Orlando Rambo. Thank you, Samuel. Thank you guys for being here. Like, it's wonderful to see you guys here. Just it's amazing, and like I'm happy. I'm happy talking about this, and it's great to finally show and pay my respects to someone, to an actor, and to a legendary hero that's a fictional character. And I feel it's something that I have a monumental feeling towards, and like it's not going to die down. I have an unconditional love for that character. That's never going to change now. And that's it. And Chelsea, you bring up a good point. People will come and go with that sort of thing, and that's fine. I think as long as we're not grasping at each other's throats about what is considered real, what is considered not, what's considered music, what's considered this, it doesn't matter. Mainstream, thrash, it does not matter to me. I didn't see Metallica as either thrash or mainstream. I saw Metallica as Metallica, and that is one of Metallica's biggest fans. I have never been disappointed. A lot of people are going to point out the Ordeal, the Saint Anger album. Honestly, Napster for me is ancient history. I don't care. I bought all of Metallica's albums. Okay, I have bought all of that stuff. I bought the posters. I bought the shirts. I bought the albums. I bought the wristband. I bought the the beanie hat. I bought the necklace, and possibly later I'm gonna buy the tattoo for possibly the back part. But like I've been loyal to that, and I'm not gonna go into certain details with certain people because I don't want to get into arguments. That's not what this is for. But I see Metallica as Metallica. That's just how I see it. So to any new people that are here, welcome aboard the whole Metallica family. Again, feel welcomed. If you want to talk about anything, if you have questions over anything, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to touch up upon that, because it doesn't just have to be Metallica. If something else interests you, dude, I'll even say this. If you want to look up bands like Megadeth, Anthrax, Slayer, go right ahead. Trivium is another band. You could look up Motorhead. You could look up Iron Maiden. All these other bands are out there for everybody. And as for me, I don't just listen to just metal too. I mean, metal is my number one criteria of music that I listen to, and that to me, that's the pinnacle of the music that I listen to. But there are other things that I listen to as well, and no one has to be alone in that. And I just think that's a good thing. So let me just double check and make sure that I have all of that together. Oh, and if you have not ordered your Hellfire Club shirt, I recommend that you do so. Some are available on Amazon. I got mine ordered. Again, those are going to be here in about 5 to 6 days. Really happy about that, by the way. Okay, there we go. Oh, I see why. Okay. It's because I signed in to that account, so I got to sign in again with this right here. So yeah, I get the feeling some of that might have brought up some subject matter of that, but that's okay, because again, you can disagree with something, but it doesn't have to come with any animosity. Again, everyone has their own perspectives on the matter, and as long as you stay true to what you believe, that's what counts. Okay, yeah. So just making sure. So I want to check the petition one more time, just so that way we can see currently where it stands. But I'm pretty sure it's still in the 75,000 range. But currently it's standing at 75,112 signatures. That's pretty amazing. And we're trying to get to 150,000 right there. So comes payday, if it's still going and we're still a little bit short, I will definitely pitch in more money for that, because to me, that's worth it. Other than that, that's pretty much everything I wanted to touch up upon in terms of Eddie Munson. Now, I will say this, that let me put this in regards. I will also give praise to the characters such as 11, Mike Wheeler, Dustin, Jonathan, Argyle, Nancy, Steve, Robin as well too. I don't mean that. I didn't mean that disrespectfully. I'm kind of trying to remember everyone here. Hopper, we can't forget Hopper and Murray, and then there's Joyce. There was at least there's Lucas and Max. Definitely enjoy those characters. So Elise, one of them. I think Elise was one of them. It's Eric. Why did I say Elise? It's Erica. Duh. So Erica Sinclair. Now, this is giving praise to all actors and actresses, because I'm about to say this. As for Jason's death, I did not give one rat's ass about Jason's death. I did not. He was an asshole. Billy, in regards to season 3, when I guess he sacrificed himself for 11, I didn't really feel much for Billy, to be honest, because he too was a hole. He was a racist too, so sorry. Dev Munson, woo! But like, above all, Eddie Munson is my favorite character of all time. That is permanently going to stay that way. I mean, Dustin himself is up in that level too, because I think, again, Dustin sees the best in people, and I think that also makes him one of the best characters as well too. I'm just hoping that there's at least a moment where Steve actually still has Eddie's vest. So, with that being said, ow. All right, so okay, a little fun thing. I could actually do this. If I were to actually go off of 10 songs that Eddie Munson could have at least used, since the Metallica Master of Puppets part was used in that scene, if I could go off 10, I mean, kind of take me a moment, but if I would actually have to start off, I could say you could do The Number of the Beast as one of them for that one. If you were to do a Metallica song, that possibly could have been Creeping Death. You could do, or Disposable Heroes. That's actually another one. That was the third one that came to my mind. So thank you for pointing that one out. So props to you on that one. You could possibly do Motorhead, or Ace of Spades by Motorhead. That's another one that you can do, or Free Will Burning by Judas Priest. I feel like that was that's one that you could also do. So we got about like five there. Leopard Messiah could work, but I feel like that one is a little bit slower paced on that one. But that is a good try though. I'm just trying to think of the ideas that could possibly work with that one. Okay, Megadeth's Holy War. Holy Wars from Megadeth would be number 6. That I could definitely go with that, because I think that kind of fits a tad bit with the town trying to chase after him, and brother will kill brother, spilling blood across the land, killings for religion, something I don't understand. I think that also could be another one that can definitely fit in perfectly with that one. So that's 6. So we need 4 more at least, because I'm just trying to make this a little bit more fun for us, because again, I don't want the stream to kind of sound so bland, but like trying to think of 4 more at least in that sense of metal. Okay, Anthrax's Madhouse, I think, would also work into that one, because that happens to be one of their biggest songs. Anthrax's Madhouse. So that's 7. So we could go off of that one. Just trying to think of anything else that could work with that. Because they've already used Metallica's Four Horsemen, I believe, either in the second or in the third season, I believe. So can't really go with that one. But if I were to go with 3 more of those, you could do The Trooper by Iron Maiden. So that would be number 8. So I think that one would also fit perfectly. You take my life, but I'll take yours too. You can fire a musket, but I'll run you through. I think that also would have been perfect for that one. Has to be at least 2 more. If I can just think of 2 more, then oh my gosh, then we would have perfect candidates for those songs right there. But oh, dude, Black Sabbath's Heaven and Hell. I think that would have also worked too. Black Sabbath's Heaven and Hell. The lead singer Dio from that point in time. Venom and League with Satan. That's actually one that you can do right there. That's another one. That's a perfect candidate for that one. So even if we go over 10, that's still perfectly good. So we have Black Sabbath's Heaven and Hell, Venom's and League with Satan. Yes, we are talking about Eddie Munson, who is clearly modeled after Eddie Van Halen, and also modeled after the West Memphis 3, by the way. That's his primary influence from that created that character. There's got to be at least one more from that one. There's got to be. Because we've covered at least 11 songs, but I think we should at least put one more in there, and that way you have the perfect candidate for that. So I'm just trying to think of one that might perfectly fit for that one. I could put Sodom in there, but again, it's just for something else. I think that would actually have to be perfectly intertwined. Also, okay, Running with the Devil from Van Halen, that could possibly work with that. I could see that working. And then Balls to the Walls by Accept. I'm a little on the fence with that, but I think maybe Queen of the Reich by Queensryche could actually be another one that you could use towards that one too. So those are particular songs that I would definitely see as candidates for that particular version. I know Papa Roach kind of did one. They were trying to see if like Metallica would like allow it, and they're like, no. Papa Roach was like the metal gods have spoken. So it's glad to see that they were just speaking fun about it. And they weren't hostile, and that's the good thing I like to see is that we're all having fun. We're actually being civil about it, and it's pretty cool. So. All right. Wow. Actually, it's reached 75,129. That's pretty cool. All right. So I'm gonna let the stream play out for at least about 5 minutes, but I kind of want to wrap up, and I wanted to say thank you all for coming in here and just making the stream just feel freaking cool and all that. I mean, you can tell by my wheel-shaped hair here that so I'm gonna have it grown out again. So in that sense. But again, I want to thank everybody for showing up. Rancher and Shade, Samuel Blind, Chelsea Courier, Orlando Rainbow, Dev Munson. Thank you for showing up. Kyle Stewart. Good to see you, by the way, Kyle Stewart. It's been a long time. There was one more person, I believe, that also had came in. No, I think that's everybody there. So I want to thank you guys very much, man. I'm going to actually end the stream off by saying you guys are awesome. Thank you guys for showing up. I hope to see you guys again on my next stream. I like to do positive notes on this. Furthermore, real quick before I go, I almost forgot. I had finally finished the first fan-made book of Star Wars from the Old Republic. I'm trying to get the file sent. I actually have it in a PDF file. I've sent it to like 2 people, but it's been like a complete nightmare trying to get that through. But I'm still getting it through, which is good. But I figured that's something of the announcement I wanted to share with you guys. But thank you guys very much. Thank you for everyone on the stream. Thank you, Metallica. Thank you, Joe Quinn, for giving us our legendary character, Eddie Munson, our legendary hero from Banish to legendary hero. I want to say thank you guys. You guys stay true to yourselves out there. For any new Metallica fan, welcome aboard. You're always welcome to ask any questions, or if you have any interest or anything, don't be afraid to say anything. And I think that's something that we should come together on. So anyways, you guys have a wonderful night. You guys stay true to yourselves, all right? Love you guys. Have a good night.